In the year 1800, the USS Pickering disappeared while on its way to Delaware. Carrying 90 people. The sea swallows it whole, leaving behind no wreckage, no bodies, not even a message in a bottle to tell its fate. Just 14 years later, in 1814, history repeats itself when the USS Wasp vanishes along with 140 passengers. It is as if the ocean itself reached up and erased them from existence. The mystery deepens in 1921, when the schooner Carroll Deering is found abandoned off the coast of North Carolina. Her sails are set, her galley still has food, but the entire crew has vanished. No one can say whether they drowned, deserted, or were taken by some unknown force. For years, these strange disappearances were whispered about in sailors' taverns and written in maritime logs, but the area itself had no official name. That changed in 1964, when journalist Vincent Gaddis published an article that catalogued many of these strange events. He drew a map, connected the dots, and finally gave the region a name that would echo through history: the Bermuda Triangle. This mysterious triangle covers around 500,000 square miles of the Atlantic Ocean, stretching between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. Vast, unpredictable, and unforgiving, it has claimed numerous victims over the centuries. The more losses piled up, the more infamous it became, not just a geographical region, but a legend. Everyone has heard of the Bermuda Triangle. Yet, even today, nobody truly knows what's going on there. One of the earliest clues about the Bermuda Triangle's strange nature comes from none other than Christopher Columbus himself. In 1492, on his first voyage across the Atlantic, Columbus and his men sailed directly through this mysterious region. What they encountered left his sailors deeply unsettled. Columbus's flagship, the Santa Maria, along with her sister ships, suddenly became entangled in vast fields of floating seaweed. In his journals, Columbus described them simply as weeds, but the experience was anything but simple. For 3 long days, the ships struggled to push forward, their progress slowed to a crawl. The sailors grew paranoid, whispering that the ocean floor would rise beneath them, or that the thick weeds would wrap around the rudders and drag their vessels down to a watery grave. Fear spread quickly. In an age when superstition ruled the minds of sailors, even the bravest men trembled at the thought of being trapped forever in this strange, living sea. Columbus eventually ordered his men to cut their way through, and with great effort, the fleet finally broke free. But the memory of that terrifying experience lingered. His crew became convinced that they had crossed into a cursed part of the ocean. What Columbus had discovered was not ordinary seaweed, but a vast mass of floating plants that scientists would later name Sargassum. From the Spanish word Sargasso, meaning seaweed, this strange plant would give its name to an entire body of water, the Sargasso Sea. This unusual sea is unlike anywhere else on Earth. Measuring nearly 700 miles wide and over 2,000 miles long, it takes up almost 2/3 of the Bermuda Triangle. The Sargasso Sea is a place of calm winds, still waters, and endless mats of drifting seaweed. For sailors, it was both a navigational nightmare and a psychological torment. The dense sargassum would tangle around rudders, making steering nearly impossible. Barnacles would cling to stranded ships, slowing them down further. And then there was the smell. As sargassum rotted under the hot sun, it released hydrogen sulfide gas, a substance with the pungent odor of rotten eggs. This gas was not just unpleasant. Prolonged exposure could irritate eyes, throats, and lungs, and, more disturbingly, it could affect the human mind. Reports suggest it might cause hallucinations, confusion, or even madness if inhaled for too long. Sailors adrift in these mats of seaweed may have panicked, abandoned ship, or even turned on one another. Could the Sargasso Sea explain at least some of the Bermuda Triangle's disappearances? Quite possibly. The combination of physical entrapment, poisoned air, and psychological terror could be enough to doom any crew. But as history shows, the Triangle's mysteries don't end here. For centuries, sailors told terrifying tales in smoky taverns of waves as tall as mountains, waves so sudden and so violent that they could smash even the sturdiest vessel into splinters. Most dismissed these as drunken exaggerations, sea stories meant to frighten new recruits. But then came proof. On New Year's Day, 1995, far off the coast of Norway, an oil platform known as the Dropner was quietly doing its job. Its instruments measured wind speed, water pressure, and wave activity. And then, at exactly 3 p.m., the unimaginable happened. A laser sensor recorded a single monstrous wave, towering 85 feet high. It struck with brutal force, dwarfing the waves around it, defying every model scientists had of how the ocean should behave. This was no myth. This was the first confirmed rogue wave. Rogue waves are unlike anything sailors are trained to expect. They appear without warning, often more than twice the height of surrounding waves. They don't roll gently like swells, they rise up like sheer walls of water, vertical and merciless. A ship that encounters one is lifted sharply up its steep face, then hurled down the other side like a toy tossed by a child. And the force, scientists estimate rogue waves can strike with up to 16 times the impact of a normal wave. For a small boat, it's an instant death sentence. For a large ship, it can be even worse. The sheer size of the vessel means it cannot maneuver quickly enough, making it easy prey for the ocean's fury. What causes such monsters of the deep? One theory is constructive interference, when waves traveling at different speeds collide and stack upon one another, creating a single giant surge. Another possibility is the collision of multiple storms. And nowhere on Earth are storms more frequent, violent, and unpredictable than in the Bermuda Triangle. This region lies directly in Hurricane Alley, where massive storm systems sweep north from the tropics and south from the Atlantic, sometimes clashing head-on. Add to this the possibility of a third storm pushing in from Florida, and you have the perfect recipe for chaos. Out of this chaos, rogue waves are born. Now imagine a ship, perhaps already disoriented, its crew exhausted, its compass unreliable. The sea suddenly rises before them, not like a swell, but like a moving cliff. In seconds, the vessel is swallowed whole. No distress signal, no survivors, only silence. Could rogue waves explain many of the Triangle's maritime disappearances? Absolutely. Yet even this terrifying force of nature leaves one troubling question: what about the airplanes that have vanished from the skies above? If rogue waves explain the vanishing of ships, then what about the aircraft that vanish over the Bermuda Triangle? For them, another scientific explanation emerges, one that comes not from the skies, but from deep beneath the ocean floor. Beneath the Atlantic lie enormous pockets of methane gas. Under immense pressure, this gas can freeze into a strange substance known as methane hydrate, a kind of icy solid that rests in vast deposits. Normally, it stays trapped beneath the seabed. But in rare circumstances, when the ocean floor shifts, when an earthquake strikes, or when the hydrates are disturbed, the gas can erupt in violent bursts. When this happens, the results are catastrophic. Gigantic bubbles of methane rush upward, displacing the water around them. For a ship floating above, the effect is deadly. The ocean beneath suddenly loses its buoyancy, creating a swirling sinkhole. Imagine the ocean behaving like a flushing toilet. A ship caught in the wrong place at the wrong time could be sucked down in seconds, swallowed whole, with no time to send out a distress call. But the danger doesn't end there. Methane is also highly flammable. If an aircraft happens to fly through an area where methane is suddenly released, its hot engine exhaust could ignite the gas. The result? A massive mid-air explosion, one powerful enough to obliterate a plane, leaving no wreckage behind. For many scientists, this theory is not mere speculation. Studies of the seafloor near Bermuda have revealed signs of methane hydrate deposits. In laboratory experiments, researchers have shown how methane bubbles can cause model ships to sink rapidly. It is a chilling demonstration of what might happen in real life. So could methane eruptions be the answer to some of the triangle's mysteries? Possibly. They would explain the sudden, untraceable destruction of both ships and aircraft. Yet, just like the Sargasso and rogue waves, methane explosions cannot explain everything. They are another piece of a puzzle far more complex than any single explanation. And just when scientists thought they had narrowed down the possibilities, a new discovery would emerge, one buried deep within the island of Bermuda itself. For centuries, navigators noticed something strange when passing through the Bermuda Triangle. Their compasses would behave erratically. Needles spun without reason, pointing not to magnetic north but to true north, a phenomenon rarely encountered elsewhere on Earth. To sailors of the past, this was a terrifying omen. To scientists, it was a clue. You see, the Bermuda Triangle is one of only a handful of places on the planet where magnetic north and true north align perfectly. Normally, navigators must adjust for the magnetic declination, the difference between the magnetic field and the planet's geographic axis. But inside the triangle, this difference disappears, causing compass needles to point directly north. For inexperienced pilots and sailors, this anomaly can cause devastating navigational errors. A small miscalculation in open water or open sky can be fatal. But even stranger than this compass mystery is something witnesses have described as the electronic fog. Pilots who have survived encounters with it tell chilling stories. They describe a strange, silvery cloud that forms without warning, surrounding their aircraft. Instruments flicker and fail. Compasses spin uselessly. Radios die. One pilot, Bruce Jernan, famously recounted how his plane was engulfed in this fog in 1970. For what felt like minutes, he was trapped in a gray void, with strange streaks of light forming a tunnel around him. When he finally emerged, something impossible had happened. His plane had traveled more than 100 miles in only a few minutes. To this day, no one can explain what Bruce Jernan experienced. Was it a rare form of weather phenomenon, like a storm cloud charged with static electricity? Was it a distortion in Earth's magnetic field? Or something else, something beyond human understanding? Electronic fog could explain why some pilots and sailors vanish without warning. Their instruments don't just fail, their very sense of direction collapses. Trapped in a haze of confusion, they drift further and further from safety, until the ocean claims them. And yet, this theory too has limits. While strange compass readings and foggy anomalies are real enough, they cannot account for the scale of the disappearances. To truly understand the triangle, we must look not only at natural forces, but also at the possibility that human imagination has played a role in shaping the legend. Strange disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle have been whispered about for centuries. Sailors spoke of ghost ships, of compasses that spun wildly, of skies that swallowed planes whole. But for most of history, these were scattered tales, buried in naval records or passed down in tavern stories. The Bermuda Triangle might never have become a global mystery, if not for the power of the media. In 1950, a journalist named Edward Van Winkle Jones published an article in the Miami Herald, detailing a series of unexplained vanishings. 2 years later, author George X. Sand expanded on the idea in Fate magazine, giving the mysterious patch of ocean its infamous nickname, the Deadly Bermuda Triangle. These stories captured the public's imagination, and suddenly, what had once been quiet rumors became headline news. The legend exploded in 1974, when author Charles Berlitz released his best-selling book The Bermuda Triangle. Berlitz's dramatic style, mixing fact, speculation, and a touch of the supernatural, convinced millions that this was no ordinary stretch of ocean. He wrote of time warps, alien abductions, and ships dragged into other dimensions. His book sold more than 20 million copies worldwide, and with it, the triangle transformed from a maritime curiosity into a cultural phenomenon. Television soon followed. Documentaries, radio shows, and even Hollywood films fueled the mystery. In the public imagination, the Bermuda Triangle was no longer just a place on the map, it became a doorway to the unknown. By the 1980s, school children grew up knowing the legend as if it were part of history itself. But here's the question, how much of this was true? Researchers who went back to examine Berlitz's claims discovered that many of the disappearances he cited were exaggerated, misunderstood, or had perfectly logical explanations. Some ships he described as vanished without a trace had actually been found later. Some planes were lost not to mystery, but to storms, navigational errors, or mechanical failures. And yet, despite the skepticism, the myth continues to grow. Why? Because humans are storytellers. The Bermuda Triangle offers something irresistible, a place where science, fear, and imagination collide. It is not just about lost ships and planes, it is about the thrill of mystery itself. The legend has endured for decades because it appeals to something deep in us. We want to believe that there are still places on Earth where the rules don't apply, where the ocean holds secrets no radar can penetrate. The Bermuda Triangle, whether real or exaggerated, gives us that possibility. After decades of speculation, scientists began to take a closer look at the Bermuda Triangle. They collected weather data, mapped the ocean floor, studied shipwrecks, and analyzed flight records. And what they found was surprising. The Bermuda Triangle is not statistically more dangerous than any other heavily traveled part of the ocean. Insurance companies, for example, don't charge higher rates for ships or planes passing through it. The U.S. Coast Guard, which patrols the area constantly, has stated many times that the number of accidents is consistent with the sheer volume of traffic moving through these waters. In fact, millions of ships and planes safely cross the triangle every single year. So, what does that mean? Are the mysteries all solved? Not entirely. While many disappearances can be explained by storms, human error, rogue waves, methane eruptions, or compass anomalies, there are still cases that remain unsolved. Wreckage never found. Crews that vanish without leaving a single clue. Families are left with questions that science cannot fully answer. And maybe that is the greatest power of the Bermuda Triangle, not the number of ships or planes it has claimed, but the way it captures our imagination. Perhaps the Bermuda Triangle is not about the ocean swallowing ships, but about our human hunger for wonder. We crave the possibility that there are places where the ordinary laws of nature bend, where reality feels thinner, and where the line between fact and legend blurs. So the next time you hear of a vessel vanishing without a trace, or a pilot reporting strange lights before cutting off communications, remember, whether explained by science or left in shadow, the Bermuda Triangle continues to haunt us because it is more than a place on the map. It is a story, one that refuses to sink.